order. Are there any declarations of interest, conflict of interest?
No.
No. Okay, first on the agenda is the approval of minutes for the public hearing and the regular meeting of the city council for January 3rd. Any corrections? A motion?
I move we adopt the public hearing regular meeting of the city council on Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No planning commission report. Mayor's report. So it was maybe a month, 6 weeks ago, somebody dropped a red wax amaryllis in my truck. And I am at the very end of the second bloom of flowers off of it. And I just, no idea who did it, but I want to say thank you. I've enjoyed them. My wife's enjoyed them. We've had 6 on the first stalk, 5 on this second one. Thanks a lot. And it's no longer in wax. I put it in a pot. Okay, so we had a town hall. And it was well attended. We're working out the bugs. The next town hall is going to be February 26th at 6 o'clock in the evening at the fire station. And on that agenda, one of the first things we're going to do is Chief Como is going to give us a lesson in how to use Cahoots, which is an online voting system, so we can ask questions and everyone can vote immediately on their phone, correct?
That is one option, yes.
One option.
Yes.
And this will include people on Zoom also, so we're not just doing it with a small group of people. Anyone who joins us on Zoom can be part of this and be part of the process, because we want to be inclusive and open about everything we're doing about this public safety building. And there are a few other things we're gonna do during that town hall, and one of them will be the rules for the town hall meeting. The next steps, talk about an advisory vote, which is something we will do at that time also. And now I'm going to go to Councillor Deborah. Concerns, or excuse me, the report.
Nothing to report. I've been, actually, I do have something to report. I've been going and visiting other fire stations down the coast, and probably at the town hall.
Okay, great, thank you. Rita?
Well, okay, so I met again with the Clackamas Regional Housing Authority. And they are doing a countywide assessment of buildable land inventory, which I know that our attorney is aware of. I don't know if you're aware of the whole countywide, but ours in particular. And they also showed us their Clackamas County Housing Dashboard, which shows places of affordable housing. So if anyone's interested, they can go there and get it. And then they also talked about the urban reserve approach, about dealing with lands outside of the urban growth boundary. And a lot of this made no sense to me, but I'm learning, every time I go, I learn a little more about what's going on in our county. So I did that. And then the police chief was nice enough to meet with me to talk about the ramifications of homeless people camping on private property. So that was good. And then I think that's it.
Sharon?
Yes, so I've had discussions with various citizens about the elk situation. As an update, we have 2 lawyers who are submitting the records request to ODFW. I also, spoke with citizens about the airport zoning, and possible expansion. And, the wetlands, in Gerhart. Secondly, I am on the airport committee, so we had our, every other month meeting. And we also had a consultation with, Garrett, our planner, regarding, we don't have a zone per se, we have, it's a overlay zone. So, we met with him and asked him if, certain upgrades that the airport committee is thinking about doing in the next 3 years, would conflict with any of that. He didn't have a definitive answer for that. I think he was going to check into a couple of things and get back to us. Thirdly, we had a CERT meeting after a several month hiatus. I did send out, I don't know if you all saw it, on the city blog, one more call for people to answer our survey. We got approximately 60 responses back from that survey, which was good. I mean, it's better than 0. But, and I just wanted to thank the reserve. The reserve came back with a 26% response, which was pretty good. So that did go out one more time. And then lastly, I had several citizens ask me about the possibility of our fire department being able to train at Camp Riley as opposed to us having training facilities of our own. So I got on the phone and I spoke with the training facility manager, Henry Indica, and he explained what partly what the process was. That yes, they did have classroom and pavement area as well for training. They don't have a burn building, although he would like to get one in the not too distant future. The price that he told me, ballpark figure, would be $100 to $200 a day for us to train up, for our department to train up there. After I spoke with him, I sent an email to our fire chief and asked him to give me pros and cons of having our fire department train up there. He got back to me very speedily. Thank you very much for that. And I would like to, with his permission, which I already have, put his responses out onto our blog so the public has access to those. That's it.
Thank you. Dana.
Guess I'll work backwards. So last week I attended the League of Oregon Cities, Small Cities meeting down in Bay City. And topics of discussion there were rising dissatisfaction amongst cities with unfunded mandates, where we're being required to do things. A number of things that we have to do are handed to us with no money then to allow us to do it. And in a small city like ours, that could be a problem, and other cities are experiencing the same thing. I won't go into it too much because the topics that they were most concerned with, I already talked with Chad on, and his staff is already working on a lot of them, but it's still an issue where we receive these mandates and no funding in order to achieve them, and it's something that they are going to ask. We've asked the League of Oregon Cities to go to the mayor's caucus and to start to push back on some of that stuff. So there's that. Seaside mentioned that they had a very productive work session where they had Dogami come in and do a presentation. And I think that might benefit us, especially with all of the other things that we have going on with the fire department. So maybe at some point during a work session, we should have them come in. They are offering money to help with startups and that type of thing. I think it might also benefit us to have some training on regarding, you know, power line safety in the case of anything happening, and cell phone concerns, because we're so used to our cell phones that that could be something that might be useful to our folks and to us in a part of our planning. Recreational liability continues to be a problem. All of the cities are dealing with the new ruling on recreational liability. Again, I checked with Chad and we're making progress at the city. I'm comfortable we're making progress at the city level on what we need to do there to protect ourselves. A lot of the cities had a lot of problems with flooding. They had a lot of problems with flooding that turned into problems that they almost couldn't spend with the permits that were required because of the environment that they were working in. There was a lot of discussion about best practices for meetings and agendas, and I've also had some citizens reach out to me this last month discussing our agendas and why our agendas look like they do. And I would suggest that that might be a good topic for us to do a work session on in the very near future. A lot of cities do a work session at the beginning of every meeting, and I think that that might benefit us. The next meeting for that is St. Helens on May 3rd. August 2nd is going to be here in Seaside. And I know that we talked in the past about the possibility of us hosting here. And Justine made an excellent suggestion that why wouldn't we do it at the school? And I think I'm going to one up her and say, why don't we host it with Seaside? Because, you know, throw some money into the kitty for the sandwiches or whatnot, so that we can, you know, be part of it and do it without being too laborious for us, and we don't really have a great meeting spot anyway. So there's that. And then the biggest thing was meeting with the key staff from state parks about public concerns over the lack of enforcement on the beach, particularly during holiday periods. We made the message to them was we want to be good partners, but we can't neglect our first duty to the city and the rural fire protection district. At the moment, I think the meetings are productive. Our next steps, I think, are to contact the county and perhaps State Office of Emergency Services to see if there's further steps we can do. I've had a lot of citizens, you know, concerned about this. I spent a lot of time talking about the beach jurisdiction versus our jurisdiction. And maybe that'll be a topic that we'll have to have during a work session at some point too. And I will advise everybody, I believe that the talks become less productive. And that's it.
Great, thank you. Police Chief Gregory.
Thank you. Good evening. Just a couple things to go over, some stats of note. We had one theft, 2 case, we had a vehicle theft that was solved. We have 2 vandalism cases, of course, this is the month of January. 1 fraud, 4 disturbances, we had 5 animal related calls, 1 warrant arrest, 3 citations were issued. We had 64 actionable items, and of those 34 were case files. Moving on to Mrez. Mrez is still moving forward in the academy. He's doing well. He's passing all of his tests and excelling, so he's doing what he's supposed to do. And his graduation date is still March 29th, so we're all looking forward to getting back. I know I am. Sergeant Brown, he will be attending in Salem, the DPSST supervisor school, which is mandatory for sergeants. That's a 2-week class. He'll be gone from March 4th through the 8th, and then he'll come back another week in April from April 1st to the 5th. So that's a very good class. We'll been through it. It's really good, and I'm excited for him. We also are working on some good trainings. I want to get Rez in for defensive tactics instructor. I want to foster his abilities. He's really good at that already. He's in the jiu-jitsu, and I just want to make him happy with that. So that's gonna be good. And Sergeant Brown will be going to some rifle training as well as an instructor. So we're excited. And I really enjoyed the town hall, and I look forward to future discussions on this topic. I'm excited about it. That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chief Como.
Thank you, sir. Quick stats for last month. We had a total of 65 calls. 30 of those were in the city limits. 27 was in our district. We sent out aid, auto mutual aid 8 times. 5 was the seaside, 4 was for structure fires, 1 was they needed extra manpower, they had like 3 calls going at one time, so they called us to come and help. And then we went to a fire in Kenny Beach, and then a fire in Astoria, and then there was a fire in Napa, so we had to go to Astoria and cover their district while they were out in our district for that one. And how that compares to January 2023 was, 2023 was 55 calls, so we're 10 calls ahead of last year, previous year, already with that. And if there, we are also going to DPSST for Winter Fire School the end of this month. We have 3 firefighters going for different classes signed up. So after that, they do it every year, and we go there and for a weekend class, sign up and take some. They have stuff from admin training to hands-on training, ladders, and electrification, all sorts of stuff. So it's a good class for that. And if there's no questions, that's all I have for last month's report.
Any questions? Great, thanks, Steve. Master of money.
Notable revenue activity was in 10-0013, which is our municipal court. 10-0065, which is the conflag mobilization. We received our last payment, revenue payment, for work that had been done during the summer months. And Fund 40 for building plan review and related permit fees. In expenditures, notable activities was in 10-1540, which is court, and that is for our municipal judges' professional services. We had court, we only have it every 3rd month. I don't know what that is, biannually or triannually or whatever, but so he had submitted a invoice for that. In 10-1847, park maintenance and repair, there was for mowing of noxious weed in the dunes area. Fund 40 for building inspectors professional services, and 727299 police car replacement expenses to upfit all 3 of the department's police vehicles as approved by the councilors in September. So all 3 of those cars are now done and the invoice is paid. Also, after Councilor Gould's inquiry to 10-1849, the vehicle equipment maintenance, I did go back and look at that account, and it will continue to be over budgeted amounts. In July, we had readjusted that account. It had always been charged, fuel and maintenance repairs had always been a charge to water, but we had kind of looked at those accounts, and really Public Works serves all 3 departments, streets, parks, and water, and we had distributed those FTE out. So starting in July, we started dividing the fuel out to those 3 departments, not evenly, but proportionably upon what FTE we thought should go there. So that's why that fund is over. The distribution change will be a budgeted change this next year, so we'll put more money in it. And I don't think we'll have any problems with appropriations this year, but it is a better way to track because they empty garbages and things with parks, so they do use fuel. So that will make that adjustment. During the budgeting cycle, the internal budgeting process will begin this month. Administrator Sweet and I are working on a process for supervisors to evaluate their budgets, review their staff's salary placement, and continue to refine their account codes. Our goal is to meet the needs of each department while collaborating as a cohesive fiscal unit. And as a reminder, we still have applications open for the budget committee. In Oregon League of City News, they reported that the public employees' retirement, so PERS, investment earnings have fallen short of expectations for the 2nd year in a row. This means that employers are responsible for making up the difference between system earnings and PERS retirement obligations, which will impact employer rates beginning July 1, 2025. They're on a biennial cycle, so that's when our next rate increase is. They are projecting a system-wide average employer rate of 27%. Currently, Gerhardt's average is 22%. So, and that affects all salaries in our budget. We have had lots of opportunities over the last 2 water cycles to talk to water account holders. We are thankful for their patience as we try to explain account holders' meter reads. And our new meter reader has been communicating with city staff and making an effort to better serve Gearhart. I think it'll be my 3rd year in April. And I had never met a meter reader, and I've met this one 3 times, so, and he brought us donuts. So I'm encouraged.
That it? Thank you.
Yeah, question.
Yeah.
Page 37 of the check detail. The check to quality tree removal, was that all for one place?
That was for multiple locations, that was for in front of the less than one park, that was in front of the numbered streets. And that was also in front of the near the peninsula, near Little Beach, in that area as well. And then we had some just dead debris removal done as well, kind of throughout. So that was, yeah, it was essentially one big project.
Just multiple sites.
3 sites, yes.
Gotcha.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question, and it's just what did we do to the fire station last month? It's I had it. It's $191 to spend on something. Bring it over anyway.
Were you looking at the expense report or a detailed?
I'm just curious, you can tell me later. Just tell me now. Here it is, fire hall maintenance. On 111.
What's the page?
Oh, I'm sorry. Page 28. It's a low amount, I'm just curious about it. In light of everything going on.
So it was reimbursement for batteries. We reimbursed the Gearhart Rural Fire District. Correct, Josh? I mean, I'm pretty sure that was for, we had used, a fire department had used their credit card to purchase some batteries. And so this was a reimbursement back to them.
Any other questions? Preston, Rita?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on, city attorney, Peter Watts.
I have a couple of updates. We should be getting another update from Portland State University about our population forecast. And then a better idea of what number they're going to give us will be happening in March. So we've been trying to make sure they have accurate data on all of our trends so that they make accurate assumptions going forward. Couple of things. I think that there have been some questions on how presentations end up on the agenda. And if people want to do a presentation, and they can contact our mayor. And it's discretionary. Obviously, we have one this evening from the Sunset Empire Transportation District. So that's an instance where they wanted to present and the mayor said, okay. Ultimately, it is up to him. Though the city councilors can veto if they think something, if they collectively think something should be on the agenda. So as far as public participation in the meetings, there was a law passed in 2021, House Bill 2560, that explains how people can participate in meetings when there's public comment, and that's it. They can comment in person, and people can comment online though we are allowed to have reasonable restrictions on that. And the reason that I bring that up is because in other cities that I've staffed and I think now in Clatsop County, there have been people that have assumed identity, so they claim a name or claim to be from somewhere and they're not. And they're engaging in what I would term anti-Semitic hate speech against Israel, Israeli people, Jews in general. And it is, I mean, and I'm not Jewish, and it's still traumatizing to sit through these meetings and hear people screaming Heil Hitler and so one of the things that I've talked to Chad about and the mayor and I have talked about is whether we want to pre-screen people that are calling in to make sure that they're members of the community and make sure they are who they say they are, so that we don't have to be subjected to this. I'd also say that, and I would recommend that we do that because we want to make it as easy as possible for members of the community to participate. And if they think they're going to have to sit through anti-Semitic hate speech, it's going to make them not want to go to meetings, in my opinion. And in St. Helens, not only was it anti-Semitic, but it was incredibly racist. Words that I never thought I would hear at a public meeting. So, and again, we don't know who these people are or their organizations or any of that. So that is a possibility that we could do under the current laws. And then I think it would be helpful for staff and also me to see if the council wants to have a kind of a rule on whether the council wants to weigh in on geopolitical matters, because it seems like we're starting to get requests on that. Traditionally, city councils weigh in on community matters of concern. So if we know that there's kind of a bright line rule of if the city council were just say, well, we don't want to, regardless of the conflict or where it is in the world, whether you want to be presented with those sort of resolutions or those sort of things, so that we know what to say to people if they approach the city and ask to be put on the agenda or request time. And again, during public comment, people have broad free speech rights and they can say what they want. But I think it would be, if we get more of these requests, it would be helpful to have kind of a bright line rule, a sense of whether council wants to hear these things or not. And we have some, we had a issue that we sent to insurance, it feels like a couple years ago, where there's a pipe that's in someone's front yard that's kind of decoupled and created kind of a sinkhole. Those properties were not in the city at the time that the pipe was built. And they didn't go through our planning or engineering or any of that. So the city didn't permit any of this. It was all unincorporated Clatsop County at the time it was built. Some studies were done in 2002 related to the scope of the problem. There's a person purchased a house. Perhaps none of this was disclosed to them. So they filed a lawsuit, which we tendered to insurance, which is what we do. And so CIS has been handling it. And again, in my mind, the property wasn't in the city. It didn't go through city planning. We didn't review any of it. It was all done in the county. So I don't know exactly whose fault it was, but in my mind, it wasn't us because we weren't involved in any of that. So, but my understanding is that the water apparently is coming off the highway. I don't believe they've included ODOT or the county or the prior owner who perhaps didn't disclose all these issues to them. The one thing that the city did do is this sinkhole kind of would get lower, the city would put in a bucket of gravel. And so that's what they're pointing to as far as that we were somehow to blame. So I think we still should be really good neighbors, but the cynical lawyer in me is like, wow, we shouldn't have put gravel in there, and then they wouldn't have anything, so. That's gonna go to mediation, and then it could possibly go to trial. And again, it's being handled by our insurance team at CIS, but I wanted to keep you guys in the loop, because frankly, I had kind of forgotten about it until pretty recently. So other than that, I don't think I have anything.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When you were at that meeting in St. Helens, why wasn't there someone to either mute the person or escort them out of the room if they were using hate speech?
It happened so fast, and it was the first time it's happened.
Mhm.
But then I was at a meeting, I don't know if it was the first time it happened in Oregon, but it was the first time it happened, and it was like, they used the N-word.
Right.
And it was stunning, like and I think they were trying to mute it, and then when they muted that person, there were a lot of other people that weren't muted, and so other people started screaming the same stuff. And I know it's happened in Beaverton as well, I know it's happened in a lot of cities. And so, I don't know who they are or where they're from or what their motivation is, but in another city that I was staffing, they used property addresses for people that actually lived in the city. And so, they were pretending to,
Right.
and I think that then becomes a huge concern too, because then people think this might have been their neighborhood.
So then what would pre-screening do to stop that? If they were in the audience.
Well, so if they're in the audience, there's really nothing that we can do about it. I would hope though that the community wouldn't tolerate that kind of speech at our meetings, and that would be what dissuades them from doing it. I think it's the anonymity of being able to call into a meeting, being able to pretend that you're someone that you're not. And then it's horrifying.
Yeah.
Some of the things that are said are just horrifying, and there are no ramifications because they're anonymous. And so if verified members of the community wish to do that during our meeting, I guess I would hope they wouldn't, but again, the Beaverton mayor suggested it, they might not even be real humans, it might be AI or bots, or we don't know. Well, we just don't know, and so I looked into, and I guess it's happening in Cannon Beach, as my understanding, so it's spreading in Classic County.
Well, I agree that our community should never stand for that sort of thing. But as a librarian, pre-screening just really smacks of censorship to me. And no matter, you can get around it, you can call up and say, I'm Joe Schmo, and then I just want to talk about, the flag parade, and then you could just go off on a whole nother topic. So I don't know, pre-screening just seems really like censorship.
So I'm not, and again, I don't want this to be it's not based on certain speech, it's just verifying that the people that want to engage in public comment are members of the community, are like verifiable members of the community, and then they can say whatever they want.
I understand.
It's just the anonymity of online public meetings that's created this opportunity, and there are people that are terrified by it. So, and I think it certainly can have a chilling effect.
I agree.
So it's, again, I'm not suggesting, it's ultimately up to you about what you want to do on this stuff. It doesn't seem to be going away though, it seems to be getting worse.
Thank you.
But you're saying that if we did set up a pre-screening, somebody could call in and say, I'm, James Smith and I live at X address or a PO box, and they could be telling a lie about that, right?
Yeah, there are probably ways that if people give their name and an address and, you know, we have their water bill and it doesn't match, then. I mean, there are ways that we can see whether people are members of the community or whether they're calling in from, I don't know where. And I don't know that, I don't, you know, I hope it doesn't happen here. We're not going to be 100% effective, but the other thing I think we would be demonstrating to members of the community is that we're trying to prevent the issue. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are workarounds that if people really want to do it, that they can.
I think it's something that definitely needs more study and maybe some more behind the scenes research, because there is case law that supports people standing in the back of public meetings like this, doing a Heil Hitler, and you cannot remove them. They are allowed to do that as long as they're not disrupting or interfering from our ability to proceed with our meeting. And I've been in meetings where I told you guys about the guy that used to dress up in a clown costume and just take his 2 or 5 minutes and just read a newspaper article about something completely. And they have the right to do that, even if you don't want to hear what they have to say. So you have to be very careful. And we don't have a rule right now that says that only people who are in our city can speak to us. And I'd be very nervous about doing that. I think we don't want to prevent an opportunity to learn something that we might not have learned. While I understand the concern with this, so I think maybe more research.
Right, and there's federal case law related to removing people from the city of Portland, actually. And if they're causing a disturbance, they can be removed. If they're interfering with the ability for other people to participate, they can be removed.
Right.
If they have a sign that's blocking a view, they can be removed. But you're right, people can come here and they can say whatever they want. And people can get on the phone. And I tend to think that the more information we require of people, that if you come in person, you have to say your address, you have to say your name, that it will make it less likely that we'll have the issue. But I don't think we're going to be able to prevent the issue.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to chill anyone's speech, but you know, we also have hate crime laws in Oregon, and it, you know, it's a balance of rights.
So I'm just trying to picture this, so if we have somebody stand up in the audience and they launch into that kind of talk, we can have them removed?
No, if they interrupt the meeting, you can have them. So we're not in public comment right now, but if someone stood up and started screaming, like, we could say, please stop. And if they won't stop, we could ask that they be removed from the meeting, and then they could come to the next meeting. Judge Simon says you can't remove someone in like perpetuity, that the cure is to remove them the next meeting too. And we're not talking about trespassing anyone, but I think it used to be, if you weren't in person, you submitted written testimony. And if you were in person, you could submit written testimony or speak. And what we have now is like a dual track where you can submit written testimony from online or in person, and you can speak from online and in person. And the anonymity of people speaking from the phone is created in other jurisdictions, not us, knock on wood, I hope not, issues. And so I think that then the question is, what can we do legally to recognize everyone's First Amendment rights to say whatever they please, but also keep anonymous individuals from interrupting or, you know, and there's perhaps some tools under House Bill 2560, but it's a thought for a future conversation, I think, because the laws around all this are evolving, and probably worth the discussion.
I think it's just important to remember that the reason they're doing that is for a reaction. And we're not puppets, so don't let them pull your strings. Don't give them the reaction that they're looking for, and it becomes very boring after a while to do that. The more you react, the more fun it is for them.
Are they doing it for the city council or are they doing it for the audience?
They're doing it for themselves and,
Well, basically.
yeah, both. They're hoping that we will react badly. They're hoping that we will react badly and do something wrong so that they can then sue us and get more attention to their cause. So we need to be very careful of that.
What happens if we just get up and turn around and face the wall?
Well, that is always an option, especially for everybody in the audience. We live in a good community and I have full faith that our community members would handle that appropriately.
I'd like to see more discussion about this for sure.
Okay. Anything else for Peter? None? Chad Sweet.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, a couple of updates. Code enforcement, we've been pretty busy. Angelina has been helping. We've closed quite a few cases without having to go to trial. So that's good. We've got one citation that we've issued here just recently that will likely go through trial. And we've got a few other code enforcement issues that are open. Closed another one today where somebody just built an accessory building, a small shed, close to the front property line. And through working with them rather than just issuing a citation, we worked with them, they fixed it. And so those issues are being handled. We've got a couple of other cases that are just kind of hanging out there, one of them maybe a little bit bigger, but we'll see how that develops. Public Works and meter readers. I wanted to thank Justine and Miss Christie. They've been doing a lot of having a lot of conversations with our folks and trying to get ahead of that situation with the misreads. The meter reader company has definitely improved over late, and the donuts helped, but so did the 2 free cycles where they're not charging us for reading for a period of time. So that's also good for the city. But again, I wanted to thank Justin and Christy for taking that one on. That's been a lot of work. I want to highlight the 2 budget committee member positions that we have. Those are available to the community, and it is, I think, very interesting committee to sit on. Generally, we do 2 meetings, sometimes 3. Those meetings are fairly easy. Ms. Justine does a great job of preparing the budget committee members to teach them about the process and show them about our budget. And I think it would be really good for the community members to mix in and to see how the city of Deer operates with its funds. It's quite eye-opening. So those committee appointments, if you are interested, fill out an application and you can do that online, or you can come in and see Christy or Justine and they'll help you out with that as well. Lots of meetings, many of them with the city councilors and that. Also having some collaboration follow-up meetings with Councilor Sharon here coming up, just to continue that conversation. So that's still percolating with us. Special projects, we're going to be looking at the court resurfacing here soon for the spring. And we received a grant for that. Water tower generator, getting that project. We have received a grant for that as well. Benches, I've been working a little bit with our Councilor Fackrell and her bench crew. We have had discussions with the Oregon State Park and Recreation Department, and we have a pathway for getting our benches approved through their permitting process. And we'll, if all goes well, we'll be bringing that to the city council for the March city council meeting to discuss those permits and also to discuss the locations of some new benches that the committee is suggesting. So,
And that's in city?
Yeah, yes. Yes. Noise reduction fencing, also a project that the mayor asked me to look into. We're starting to get some prices in for the noise, potential fixes for fences to help with the noise that come from the tennis and pickleball courts. And that may come to the council in March as well. We received a grant for recreational amenities, signage grant, so we were awarded $2,000 for that from our insurance company, so we're using that for that recreational amenity signage. And we have some, verbiage from CIS to help us with that. President's Day, February 19th, city offices will be closed, and the other of note is the Emergency Cash Day. It's coming up Saturday, April 20th, so if you're interested in storing emergency equipment outside the inundation zone, that is your opportunity on April 20th. And that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, moving on to visitors, Sunset, what,
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
you do?
Are you gonna have Garrett speak now?
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So one other thing, Mr. Mayor, I've asked Garrett, our planner, to attend the meeting. Over the last meeting, work session, we discussed the tree ordinance. And Garrett and I have been talking about how to move forward with that process. And I've invited Garrett here to kind of talk about his plan. And it shouldn't take very long. Garrett, are you online?
I'm here. Please let me know if you can't hear me.
Can hear you perfectly. Thank you.
All right. All right. So I was at your early January city council meeting where we discussed proposed tree amendments that came from the planning commission, and Chad filled me in on your last discussion. And what we're planning to do now, based on your feedback, is go back to the planning commission and present them with, of course, the actual notes and minutes from those discussions. But we're going to summarize the issues for them that you all raised and invite them to help define a path forward on how they'd like to respond to your comments. And a few options that we'd like to offer them include bringing them a handful of case studies of other comparably sized communities from the Pacific Northwest that have adopted tree ordinances that are, let's say, more robust than the city of Gearhart's and more recent, to help them see what kinds of options there are and ways that other communities have addressed some of the same questions that you all have. And then another option, although it could be, you might say, disproportional to the size of Gearhart, would be to see if they'd like us to look into finding resources to do some kind of inventory and characterization of the trees in the city of Gearhart. And a third option would be seeing if they'd like us to do some kind of public involvement, such as an online questionnaire to inform some next steps. The idea behind these three options is that while some of your all's feedback was, I think, relatively straightforward to address, some of it pointed to some fundamental differences in what people on the planning commission or city council see as the goals of the ordinance update and what direction in general we want to be headed in. And I think to give the planning commissioners an opportunity to revisit this and establish some common goals, some new information and sort of joint fact finding might be needed. And it could be very basic. For example, just reviewing some case studies. But there's also some more involved options that you would typically find in larger communities that are undertaking tree ordinance updates, where actually it would be common to do an entire urban forest management plan, for example, to inform a tree ordinance update, just like we do a comprehensive plan before doing a comprehensive zoning ordinance update. But I think that there's some some basic lighter steps that we can take. And so we'll be having that conversation with the Planning Commission. And that's the direction that I think we're going to be headed in, unless you all have some additional feedback or direction this evening.
Well, Garrett, not knowing that you're going to talk, I don't have anything I can say to it because I got to think about it now. It was kind of like, I didn't know this was happening.
Yeah, it's not. an agenda. It's fine.
But I think the last request was is that, you know, we bring it back to the planning commission.
Right.
And so Garrett and I had that conversation, and I think his plan is a pretty good start to have that. And so we're going to be talking to them tomorrow at the planning commission.
That's great. I would like to get a hold of those ordinances that you're talking about, Garrett, for the other cities that may be a little more robust, but may give us an idea of direction, just so I can look at it and think about what they're doing and what what I think we talked about doing. I have to go back over my notes, but thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have any comments?
Did we all get the synopsis of the?
Yeah.
Once we start collecting, we haven't done that research yet, but once we get those done and figure out the timeline on that, we'll get that to the council as well, report and what we're working on with.
Okay. Great.
Chad, I just want to emphasize we need to let the public know that this is happening, because I've had quite a few conversations the last month. I mean, trees aren't a sexy thing. They didn't know that this was happening. But this could have a major impact on people's property rights, and we can't make these kind of decisions without public input.
Garrett agrees with you, and that's why he's talking about potentially some sort of survey to find out more information from the community, or figuring out a way. We'll work with the planning commission to do that. And any changes to the ordinances, of course, there's going to be two hearings on that, one at the planning commission, one at the city council, in addition to whatever else we do.
The planning commission had a public hearing on it.
They did, but depending on where we're at with this might be a pretty well a start over with this situation, because what their hearing was on was a different ordinance entirely. And if we're going to make changes and be more restrictive, then it would be with us to continue having public hearings.
Yeah, here's the problem I have. I'm looking at the minutes from our discussion, and it says, number one, the reason for that, we had a public hearing and we presented it to the public as we were there to discuss, clarify the purpose to provide more information to the city staff and planning commission on authorizing tree cutting activities, provide a mechanism for collecting data on tree cutting information, and then simplifying the process for property owners to demonstrate the need for tree removal on their property. And all that sounds like kind of cool stuff, but then through the discussion, I became aware of, no, this would be a significant change, and this is almost like a bait and switch, like where you're telling us that it's just so you can count the number of trees that are being cut. But then I learned, no, this permitting, somebody would use this as a mechanism to tell somebody, no, you can't cut that tree in the one spot in your yard that you can put up a greenhouse because of your septic system. You can't put your greenhouse anywhere else. It has to be there, and you can't cut that tree. Somebody else is going to tell you that, and that can have a significant property value impact. And I think the public needs to be aware of it more than they are, because if we try and push something through without their input and without them knowing about it, I'm telling you, it's gonna be creating a lot of problems.
Yeah, I'll just make a comment about that. I have never at any point in time seen this as a way to tell somebody that they can't remove a tree. That's never been the objective of this. It's being conflated into that, and that is not what this is about.
Okay. All right, so we've got the gist of everything right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm going to move on. Right now, we're going to visitors, and the first visitor is Craig Johnston, of the Executive Director of Sunset Empire Transportation District. And you're going to PowerPoint us?
I am.
I can figure this out here.
You find the button to request.
I thought you are. Okay, I think I got it set up there. Yay. Well, thank you for having me tonight. It's a pleasure to be here. This is an effort on behalf of Sunset Empire to go out into the communities and explain what happened, what we're doing since the financial collapse, and how we're gonna move forward from here. You guys deserve that answer since services were shut down completely. So a little background. My name is Craig Johnston. I've been on the job for about 3 months and 2 weeks now. My second day starting, we had our big meeting with ODOT, go over what we needed to do to become compliant with federal regulations and get our funding streams back in order. I have over 25 years of experience in transit in Washington and Oregon. My most recent position, I was the operations manager at Basin Transit in Klamath Falls. Very similar size transit to what Sunset Empire is. And STD is guided by a 7-member elected board of commissioners. Debbie Booth Schmidt is the chair, and we have 6 other members also. A little history about Sunset Empire. On March 24th, 1993, the Clatsop County Board of Commissioners voted to create the district with the help of a state transit grant. Sunset Empire is a special district similar to fire and irrigation districts within the state of Oregon. And the district relies on property taxes, timber taxes, state taxes, federal funding, and bus fares to provide services to the citizens of Clatsop County. We have a normal staffed transit system. We have an executive director, myself, a chief operating officer, a finance manager, a mobility manager, an executive assistant, and a human resources manager. Today, we operate the district with 4 fixed route buses and 3 to 5 paratransit buses for door-to-door service for seniors and persons with disabilities. We average 500 daily riders before our service is shut down, and we're back to about 250 riders since we restarted services. So we're getting there, but we got a ways to go to get back to where we were before the financial collapse. Here's a graph that shows our total ridership before and after. As you can see, before the collapse in May, we were doing 13, 12, 14, 13,000. And then we shut down in April, the end of April, and you can see the effect on ridership that had. That's quite a few rides that weren't being performed within Clatsop County because of the cessation of services. So the big question is the financial crisis. What exactly happened? Well, in April of 2023, Sunset Empire ran out of money and shut down all services. But why? Well, they were delayed in receiving their federal funding. During the delayed disbursement of federal funds, SETB utilized state and local funds to meet payroll and continue servicing the citizens of Clatsop County. The board of directors and ODOT were presented inaccurate financial information that reported the district still had over 800,000 in available funds. The board of directors was not made aware, and ODOT was not made aware of SEP's financial position until mid-April of 2023. Eventually, the state and local funds ran out, and SETB was forced to cease operations on 4/29/2023. With the help of Governor Kotek, State Senator Weber, and State Rep Javadi,
SETD was given a $1 million loan from the Oregon Transportation Infrastructure Bank to restart services the following week. The loan will be paid back on a quarterly basis through 2027. And then we need to look at what are we going to do going forward to prevent this from happening again. Well, obviously, this is a good start. Better community networking with the various communities that we serve within Clatsop County. Cooperative and constructive expansion in the future to meet the needs and interests of our communities. Transparency of SETD's finances through improved reporting and fiscal oversight. Accurate, current, and complete disclosure of the district's financial standing. And we've already implemented new policies within the finance department. We basically rewrote all the policies to divest the director, the executive director, having the sole authority to approve or disapprove anything. So we basically kind of distributed the powers amongst the finance manager, the operations manager, the executive director, and the board, so that not one person can kind of fool everybody. So there's checks and balances in place right now. And we've all done several trainings, including the Board of Commissioners, on district financial management. 6 of the 7 board members attended ODOT's Transit District Financial Management training. We also are establishing a reserve fund in case we get a rough patch. And we already have funds, $350,000 set aside for that rough patch. And finally, a fiscally responsible restoration of services. And this is key. We don't want to get over our heads again. So we need to make sure that our federal funding streams are back in place before we start ramping up these services that we had to cut back. But we're well on the way to doing that. We only have one last thing that we need to do, and that's basically the new budget. And once we get that in place, we should be good to go, and our federal funds will be fully restored. Well, thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate you giving me this venue to come to you and show us where we're at, and hopefully the next time we meet, it'll be with more services restored. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
I do. Does your deficit in ridership, is that affecting your budget? Well, how is it affecting your budget?
Well, some of our federal funding is dictated by total ridership, so it does have an effect on that. But overall, we're taking some of the state funds and kind of using that to do the match on some of the federal funds to kind of do that. So but yeah, overall, it does affect the bottom line.
Thank you.
So is your ridership down because you don't have the services to support a larger ridership, or is it because the riders all?
There's some routes that haven't been reestablished yet. One of the biggest gaping holes is in Warrenton right now. They're not receiving any services. Some of the paratransit routes, we're not doing as much paratransit. A lot of people during that time found alternate transportation, and they haven't come back to us yet. And you know, it's going to take a while to build up that trust again. Also, some of the fixed routes are not running as many hours, so it's kind of compressed.
So how do you, I'm just curious, how do you figure out when to, like, for instance, expand the hours? I mean, how do you figure that out vis-a-vis the ridership? Do you wait until the hours that you're providing the service in get really crowded and then you expand? I don't, how does that work?
Well, it's kind of an inexact science. I mean, obviously, we want to get back to a minimum what we were before. That would be the ultimate goal, and we can't get there. It's going to take us a little while though, because we need to make sure that we have that federal funding coming in. before we do any expansion. The last thing we want to do at this point is pull back again. That would be a disaster.
Anyone else?
do you run a bus to Tillamook?
No.
That's a totally separate,
Yeah,
but I mean, you link in with that.
correct, yeah. Go down to Candy Beach.
Good question.
Sure.
So with your reduced riders,
Mm.
are you making enough revenue in order to be able to pay back that $1 million? I mean, that's a lot of money every 4 months.
We get, you know, the payroll tax, the Oregon tax you see on your pay stub that you get. We get state funds. What ODOT has set up is they're taking out every quarter that money that's supposed to go to us out of the state payroll tax. They're taking that out automatically before we even see that money, so it's already set up where it's.
But you're still solvent based on
Oh, yeah.
the number of riders that you have now.
Yes.
Okay, and I had heard through, I'm not going to disclose who at the state told me this, but I had heard something similar to what you said, where if people had known about it in advance, they could have interceded and prevented the break in service. Did I miss what steps you've taken in your budgeting process to make sure that you guys are fully aware in advance and with enough time to get a lead on it and do something about it?
Definitely, all of our reports to the board are scrutinized by ODOT. We're considered a high-risk transit right now. So everything we do, all of our reports to ODOT, all of our reports to the board are very heavily scrutinized. Every 2 weeks, we have to send them bank statements essentially. So I mean, there's no way this, it's gonna happen again. It's pretty tight the way things are right now.
What's your perception of how this impacts Gerhart? How many riders do we have?
I don't know. I know Fultona's is a popular stop, but I don't know specifically the exact numbers coming from Gerhart. That's something I haven't been able to dive into yet. I've been mainly consumed with finances the last 3 months, obviously. Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time.
Well, thank you for entertaining me.
I think that what a lot of people don't know is there was one person that was dealing with all the finances before. And the board really didn't have that much oversight. Yeah. So he's got a whole cadre of people that are looking over his shoulder.
And that's the way it should be, really.
Yeah.
As a board, you should, if you're doing things right, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. I've told board members, come on in, talk to our finance auditor, have her pull up her bank accounts and show you. If you're doing everything as it should, that shouldn't be a problem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna move on, Craig, so if you need to get up or go, but don't feel like you need to sit through this wonderful stuff we do. Next up is the request to hold the annual Gerhart Volunteer Firefighter Ball. And I'm going to have Chad read the synopsis.
Sure. Mr. Mayor, Council, so we've invited Chief Como to speak about this as well. He'll be attending to make a request for the annual Gerhart Volunteer Firefighters Ball fundraiser. You have an option to request to approve the request to hold the ball and approval of the special OLCC permit that is attached, or take other action by council. Of course, we recommend that this request be approved, and if it is approved, the city administrator and the police chief will issue a noise permit for that particular night for the ball. The OLCC application is attached to this, both the city side and the OLCC side. And from there, if it's all right with you, Mr. Mayor, Chief Como can fill in the blanks for.
The blanks, they're not filled in. I got all these check marks.
Hopefully the needed ones are filled in.
Okay,
I'd like to make a statement before we even start. You're not a member of the Gerhart Volunteer Firefighter Association.
Correct.
Where's the president?
Out of the country on some other,
Where's the vice president?
working.
okay. In that case, you're by default the representative.
Yes, sir.
Floor is yours.
So, the Firefighter Association, as Councilor Deborah has said, yes, I'm not part of the association, that's the volunteer firefighters from that. Is requesting council to have our annual firefighters ball, which is their main source of fundraising and revenue, every year that they have. Everything that's submitted to you, is the standard stuff that's been submitted in every year's prior. We're not deviating from any plans or any process that's taken place on this.
Okay. On the exempt event operational plan, page 1, item 10. If yes, will minors and alcoholic beverage be allowed together in the same area? You've got yes marked and it should be no.
So because there is a couple people on the department that's under 21 and they're out the front door doing ID checks and they're outside doing security checks from their OLCC. And when I talked to them, the county representative, they said to list that in there with that because they're going to be on site. But they cannot be on site if they do not have a job. So they'll have a specific job that they're doing.
But they're not going to be inside where the alcohol is.
Not in the correct, not inside.
So that's still, okay.
Because they're on property, OLCC one of those.
I just was checking.
Yeah.
All right, I'll take a motion. I motion to approve the request to hold the ball.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for doing.
All right. Next on the list. Public communications. Written and oral. Anyone wishing to address the city council concerning items of interest not on the agenda may do so at this time. All remarks will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Requests to comment electronically must be submitted by email to the city recorder at info@cityofgerhart.com no later than 4 p.m. the day of the meeting. In-person attendees wishing to speak are required to sign in prior to the meeting. And we're going to go with Zoom people. And the first and only is Mark Rolifson. State your name and your address, please.
My name is Mark Rolifson. PO Box 2361 Gerhart. I live in Seaside at 2160 Lewis and Clark Road, number 22. Thank you, Mayor Smith and the city council members for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I know my request is a little unusual for Gerhart, but given the gravity of our times, I think it's necessary to address this matter. I'm here in response to the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza, and I'm asking you to join cities across America in passing a ceasefire resolution. Chicago, Illinois, San Francisco, California, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Seattle, Washington, St. Louis, Missouri, Detroit, Michigan, Atlanta, Georgia, Akron, Ohio, have all passed ceasefire resolutions. Gerhart could become the first city in Oregon to pass a ceasefire resolution. Additionally, I think a ceasefire resolution should demand that Congress and the Biden administration halt all military aid to Israel, since providing such aid makes the United States government complicit to Israel's genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. The U.S. was the only country on the UN Security Council to vote against a ceasefire resolution. The U.S. Congress has refused to pass a ceasefire resolution, While polls show that the majority of Americans support a permanent ceasefire in Gaza, while we are witnessing the unprecedented horrors of Israel's bombing of Gaza that has killed almost 30,000 Palestinian civilians, it is our duty to act to stop this nightmare. Israel's genocide of Palestinians is facilitated by US weapons, 2,000-pound bombs, and special forces logistical support. On January 11th, the International Court of Justice heard South Africa's case against Israel for violating its obligations under the 1948 Genocide Convention. On January 26th, the court ordered Israel to take all necessary measures to prevent genocide by not harming civilians with either weapons or a blockade of food, water, medicine, and medical supplies. At the conference on January 31st, or at a press conference on January 31st, South Africa's foreign minister, Naledi Pandor, said, and I quote, "The International Court of Justice finding, we think, makes it clear that it is plausible that genocide is taking place against the Palestinians in Gaza. It is necessary. This necessarily imposes an obligation on all states to cease funding and facilitating Israel's military action."
I'm sorry, I was going in the back. Sorry about that.
Which necessarily imposes an obligation of all states to cease funding and facilitating Israel's actions, which the court has indicated is plausibly genocidal. I cannot be dishonest. I believe the rulings of the court have been ignored. Hundreds of people have been killed in the last 3 or 4 days, and clearly Israel believes it has a license to do as it wishes. While Senator Jeff Merkley and Suzanne Bonamici have agreed to a ceasefire resolution, Senator Ron Wyden, like many of his colleagues in Washington, do not support a ceasefire and keep stating that Israel has a right to defend itself. What Israel is doing cannot be described as defending itself. If Hamas were hiding under Tel Aviv, the Israeli Defense Forces would not use the same tactics by destroying every building and killing tens of thousands of civilians. Of course not. They would not do this. Finally, this conflict did not begin with Hamas attacking on October 7th. It started in 1948, and the Palestinians have since endured 75 years of brutal Israeli occupation. The goal of a ceasefire resolution is to pressure our elected officials in Washington to fulfill their obligation to prevent genocide while encouraging other cities and Oregon state government to pass similar resolutions. On January 31st, the Chicago City Council approved a ceasefire resolution titled Resolution in Support of Uniting for Peace. I can provide you with that, a link to that resolution and everything in it. It serves as a good template for.
You have about 30 seconds, Mr. Olson.
Well, okay, well, thank you. I hope you will consider my proposal. Please think about this very seriously, and I thank you to everyone for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. All right. We're going to move on unless someone has a comment. All right. So in written correspondence, we have a letter from Bob Morey about the school property, which we are going to possibly explore soon, I hope, with direction from the citizens. We got a letter from Helping Hands. Thank you letter. We got another letter, which I believe was in. Yeah, it's an email that I got. So it's a new one. It's a pickleball noise resolution. And the next one is from Jack Zimmerman, requesting we go back to a traditional town hall meeting. And so, anyone got any questions about these Correspondence?
Food bank.
Food bank. Did I miss that?
Yep.
Don't get.
It's
Is it on the
Last page.
Send us a thank you.
And that's my bad. And the food bank, which sent us a thank you letter. Thank you for pointing that out. Don't know why, but fingers only work one way sometimes. Any other questions or comments? All right, moving on. We're going to old business. Is there anyone who wishes to comment on the Rural Fire Protection District revised contract in the audience? You have 3 minutes if you have any comments to make. Any opponents, any proponents, any neutrals? Seeing no raised hands. Synopsis, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Council. So the Gearhart Rural Fire Protection District contract with the city of Gearhart was approved by the board during the December 2023 meeting. It was brought to council who requested further changes. The revisions were sent back to the board for review. The attached draft reflects the changes the Gearhart Rural Fire Protection District Board approved at the January 16th meeting. A simple motion to approve finalizes the contractual agreement. I want to point some things out to you because something didn't quite happen in here that I wanted to make sure you saw. In the packet, there are 2 versions of the contract, a clean version and a changed version. Unfortunately, on the changed version, the part that we were keeping and adding was supposed to be green and it didn't come out on this. So I want to highlight that paragraph for you. In red, these are the paragraphs that the city council requested we take off, and the attorney as well. So one having to do with the process of negotiations and employment was changed. And that change is just below the first red paragraph. It's the second paragraph down on page 2. That was supposed to be green. Starts with during this contract period. And I'll read that to you here real quick. During the contract period, if necessary, the city and the district will collaborate on selecting the fire chief. The city will extend an invitation to the district for participation, focusing on joint efforts in the search, selection, and review process was something that was added in. So they will participate in the review. They'll be invited to help us review. However, negotiations, employment agreement provisions, retention, utilization, and termination of the appointed individual will remain within the city's policies and practice. That is in green. That replaces the paragraph above it in red.
That's a really interesting green.
Yeah. Feel like I'm not convincing you here. The second paragraph that was removed was the dispute, controversy, or claim paragraph. And after the discussion that we had with Peter's help, it was best to remove that. The Rural Fire Protection District, the chief and I, and Division Chief Andy met with them in their meeting, and they approved this as well. And so the completed contract is the next 2 pages, and that's what we're here to approve or change tonight. Mr. Mayor.
So the green paragraph was supposed to replace the bottom of the first page and the top of the second page.
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the revised contract. Rural Fire Protection District.
Is there any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Passes.
Thank you, council, and also thank you to the Rural Fire Protection District for your volunteers as well.
Next up on New business. Anyone wishing in the audience to speak, you have a 3-minute segment to comment on any new business that we're having. It's OLCC license renewals, the liquor license application from the market, budget officer, budget calendar, and Gerhardt cleanup day. All those in favor wishing to speak, all those against wishing to speak, all those neutral wishing to speak. Saying none, we go onward. Synopsis for the new liquor license, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So effective January 2023, the OLCC implemented the local government recommendation requirement for new and renewing licenses. In order to meet the recommendation requirement, it became necessary for the city to institute a liquor license ordinance establishing new, renewal, and special license processes with fees assigned via resolution. City ordinance took effect March 2nd, 2023, and the attached is the city's first license request under the new provisions. The city administrator will make the recommendation to council with reason. Council must make the final decision to approve and formally grant the local government recommendation to the OLCC. As you see, your options are to motion to approve the Gerhardt Market liquor license application with a favorable recommendation, approve the liquor license application with restrictions and changes. 3 is deny the application for an unfavorable recommendation citing reasons. And number 4 is take action desired by council. The recommendation is that I recommend the city council approve the Gerhardt Market liquor license application with a simple motion. And just going through this the first time, the legal analysis on this is the city implemented the ordinance for process and resolution 975 for fees. Per the ordinance, the applicant submits their OLCC application and our application for review. The city administrator has 45 days from the date received to provide council with a recommendation in the public forum. A public hearing prior to recommendation is available by request from the applicant and other party affected by the application. The city received no request for public hearing. Council must make the final recommendation. If the council grants recommendation, a signed application and the OLCC application are returned to the applicant for final submission to the state. We did receive the new applicant $100 fee due at the time of submission. And after having discussions with city staff and looking at the application, the zoning, the CQ zoning, and the type of off-premise license that they are looking to apply for, which is to sell alcohol as beer, wine, and cider as a grocery store would, not with a restaurant in its interior. It all looks like it is approvable from our perspective. Council, if you have any questions right now.
You just said it was a C2 zone and it's a
C1.
C1.
C1, my apologies.
Okay,
That is definitely a C1 zone, still the same.
all right. And this doesn't preclude them under the license to get a special function permit from OLCC where they can give out sounds.
No, I don't believe it does.
Samples, if they have a wine tasting.
Oh,
I do believe it's part of the permit. And
They,
if you give me a second, I'll see if I can find it.
it just says offsite consumption only.
Right. But I'm not talking about that.
I have a question while he's looking. This paperwork, the city of Gerhardt liquor license application, was that publicized online?
Is it available online?
No, is it part of
Oh.
our packet that's online?
No, your packet has more detailed information.
Oh, okay, I just got
Because
one.
there was some private information that was on.
I have some.
Okay. Under the first page, off-premise sales, primary license privileges. You go down to the 4th dot, eligible to apply to get pre-approval to provide sample tastings of malt beverages, wine and cider for consumption on the premises. So they can do it on a special occasion, but it is not something they can do daily. It's a special occasion license. I just wanted everyone to be clear about that.
Okay, but special occasion, does that mean they could do it once a week, once a
I
month?
can't answer what OLCC will grant. I have no idea. I just know what, when I read this, I wanted to make sure I had read it. So I read everything. And it's just a world of fun. Okay, so
I think the key word there is eligible to apply to get a pre-approved.
right, it's just, it's a condition that they can apply for.
Yeah.
That's all. I wanted to make sure everyone was aware of this. I will take a simple motion.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
If we approve this and if the state determines that under the bottle bill program, they are required to accept empty beverage containers. Do we know if they've already been determined, if that's been determined, whether they're gonna have to accept empty beverage containers, or can they apply for, I think sometimes when they determine that you're so close to a recycling facility, you can limit the number that you take?
I think if they sell soda pops, they got to take it back.
You can limit the number that you take if you're found to be so my understanding, okay, I'm not gonna testify to this, but my understanding is, and I could be wrong on this, is that you can limit the number of bottles you have to take. If, I'm just curious if we're gonna have what happens over at Dollar General happening right here in downtown.
It's based on the square footage. So because this is under, I assume this is under 5,000 square feet.
It's close to 5,000.
But and I want to look this up and verify, my understanding is the threshold is 5,000 square feet. So if they're under 5,000 square feet, then it limits the number of bottles that they have to take.
Any other questions? Discussion? A motion?
Make the motion, we approve this. Their application license.
Can I get a second? Just to make it legal?
Second,
Can we have a vote of all ayes?
Aye.
Aye, all ayes. Thank you. All right. New business, OLCC license and renewals.
Mayor and council, so attached to the list of the OLCC liquor licenses in Gerard that are eligible for license renewal. Current licenses are set to expire effective 3/31/24. ORS 471.166 establishes the process for local governments to make recommendations to OLCC. A list of reasons for unfavorable recommendations is attached. That's a list of reasons that you would have available to you for an unfavorable recommendation. Your options are to take no action. After 3/31, OLCC will process the renewal applications as favorable. Number 2 is provide a written unfavorable recommendation to OLCC requesting restrictions. Number 3 is provide a written unfavorable recommendation to OLCC requesting denial for any and all licenses on the attached that would be unfavorable criteria. Staff recommends council take no action as nothing meeting the criteria for an unfavorable recommendation has been documented for any of these listed businesses. However, the city will confirm with OLCC two highlighted items. Gerhard Ocean Inn amends their name to the Drift Haven at Gerhard. And Good Times will not auto renew and the license has been withdrawn, set to expire. So those are 2 things that we will confirm through that process. And that's what I have. Any questions?
What's Supermart 11?
That is the market that's just, yeah, just to the south of us on the west side of the highway.
My question is, should we be voting on this until you confirm that? Because what recourse do we have if we vote to approve it? And then it turns out that the name hasn't been updated and Good Times haven't been taken off.
You could put in your recommendation that to be sure of those 2 things, and we'll make sure it happens. And with that being done, then we can recommend approval. So I would recommend that potentially your resolution would be that those two items, as we call them out, are taken care of prior to the recommendation being sent or prior to the expiration of the recommendation period.
I just personally think it would be cleaner, it makes me uncomfortable to do that kind of stuff. I think it would be cleaner, we've got time to move this till next month as an unfinished business item. And it'll only take a couple of minutes on our agenda next month to approve it.
Dad?
Yes, Christine.
Can I comment on this?
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
So the only thing to keep in mind is that the list that's on page 2 of the reasons that you may deny or restrict a license, if you don't have anything documented from that list on any of the businesses, then you don't really have a reason to give an unfavorable recommendation. So whether or not the items have been confirmed or not, don't really affect it renewing or not. It's just something that we needed to follow up on. Does that make sense?
Well,
Right, but all those unfavorable recommendations have to be by the 1st of March, and we don't have any of those. We have housekeeping issues that need to be addressed. And all we're saying is we'll wait until March and see if these can be addressed with OLCC, and then we'll look at it at the March meeting and do nothing.
But your
Because
your March meeting is the 7th, though.
Right, but that's only if we have a unfavorable recommendation, and I don't know that nobody has come up with an unfavorable recommendation. We don't have any violations, so we're not going to do anything until the 7th of March. And that way we can make sure that housekeeping is taken care of.
we have until, according to your document, we have until 3/31. So we have until the end of March, and we have another city council meeting in the beginning of March.
But you only have until 3/1 to have a problem with the housekeeping items. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right, no, I understand, but we're not
Okay.
coming up with anything unfavorable. We're coming up with housekeeping, and housekeeping should be addressed in a matter of days or a week at the most, right? So we can, I'm
For us,
going to
yes.
you. Yeah,
For us,
you.
yes, but yeah, OLCC, we're not so sure, but
Okay, so we wait until next month.
we can do that. And as far as the city staff, we went through the list and we didn't have any unfavorable marks on any of those businesses that we could present to you.
All right.
It's not that I don't support them, I just want it to be, I don't like doing things backwards. If it needs to be done, let's just get it done.
That's fine. Better to be on the right side of the ball. Okay, moving on. Appoint the budget officer. Synopsis.
Thank you, sir. So the governing body, the city shall, unless otherwise provided by city charter, designate one person to serve as budget officer. The budget officer or person, department, designer designated by charter and acting as the budget officer shall prepare and supervise the preparation of the budget document. The budget officer shall act under the direction of the executive officer of the city, or where no executive officer exists, under the direction of the governing body. The motions are to make a motion that the city treasurer past has been designated as budget officer, or make a motion that another person designated as budget officer. Thank you.
All right. I'll take a motion.
I make a motion that the city treasurer be designated as our budget officer.
I'll second that.
For the coming fiscal year. Raw team, master of money, go. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Justin.
He-
Kind of,
You feel more weight on your shoulder.
Approve the budget calendar.
yes, sir. So the Oregon Department, did you?
I can do this.
Okay. It's trustee this one.
So every year we have to prepare a budget calendar. It's not a mandatory requirement, but it's a requirement that they think is just best practices. So that the general public and the committees and the council are all aware of what our budget cycle is and important dates that we need to remember. This year I did make a change.
It's on the backside.
Traditionally, I've actually made two changes. Traditionally, we had 2 public notices published in the newspaper. Because online is becoming more readily used, the state is now allowing us to publish 1 legal document notice of budget committee meeting in the newspaper and also online. So we can save, it's about $300 by not publishing that second notice of budget committee. That was one change that I'm recommending. The other change is that we're changing the second meeting was on a Thursday night following the city council meeting. And I just felt like that was a lot to do in 1 week. And so I just had moved it to Tuesday, May 14th, instead of the Thursday following.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we can have a gap there, and we still have plenty of time to meet any requirements for public notices.
I take a motion.
I move that we approve the budget calendar submitted by our treasurer.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chad, we're moving on to Gerhard Cleanup Day.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Council, so in honor of Earth Day 2024, city staff is requesting permission to hold the Gearhart 3 Cleanup Day on Saturday, April 20th, 2024. Staff proposes Recology deliver to the area in front of City Hall 4 20-yard drop boxes for garbage, trash, and 2 3-yard drop boxes for recycling electronics. The boxes would be available for residents to Gearhart to dump trash at no cost from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Your options are to resolve to allow the cleanup day, take other action as desired. We recommend that the councilors resolve to allow the city to hold the cleanup day to reduce the amount of trash and or improper disposal of electronics. The financial analysis on that is the estimate from Recology was not yet available, but the application request is still pending. The request states that the same terms as last year. Recology compliance requires the total tonnage available to be quoted. In the past, the city's portion ranged from 400 to 900. Last year recorded the heaviest dump for the city to date, and our portion was 1,800. We were quoted at just over 1,900 as the maximum tonnage for this year. So that is the approximate fee. The only other fee for that, or the only other cost for that, is that there will be some staff time to help work that event. Any questions?
What about hazardous materials? Who's going to monitor what gets dumped in the trash?
Usually, we have 2 representatives, well, 1 to 2 representatives from the city watching that, and then 2 representatives from Recology that also assists in keeping that kind of stuff out of the garbage. They were here the entire time last time as well and assisted with us. It's a pretty good event, and I don't think we ended up with anything terrible last year.
So basically trash is just trash, and no yard debris, no.
Yeah, people generally will fill the yard debris bin over there. We won't allow people to put yard debris in there because that would cost us extra, but otherwise we're already paying for that over here. And yeah, it's we have a pretty good hands-on. So we also use the tractor to kind of smash things down, make it worth our while.
And we're going to advertise this how?
Say it.
We're going to advertise this to the listener.
It'll go on the blog. And on the website.
All right. Someone want to say that option?
I resolve that, I guess, do I make a motion? I resolve I recommend that we resolve to allow your cleanup day.
Give me a second.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
All right, moving. Council concerns. Dana, I'm gonna start with you.
I liked our town hall last month. I would like to build on the town hall, but I would like, for all of us going into the town hall to have an opportunity to discuss it before we, so everybody knows, you know, how to prepare for it and what to prepare for. So I would like to see a very short work session before then, so we can have a free and open discussion in the way that we can't when we're not all in a open public meeting.
Okay, so you don't want it attached to the town hall, you want it prior by a week or 10 days?
Yes, because if we're gonna, like, if for
Sure.
example, the last time we had staff speak and they could be better prepared if we kind of give them a heads up of what, you know, this is our game plan, this is what you should prepare for, these are the questions that we anticipate
Right.
receiving.
Okay, so we'll get together and I'll have Christy email everyone and see when you can break for a work session. Do you have a problem during the day or does it have to be in the evening?
I'm available at any time.
Does anyone have a problem during the day or in the evening?
I have no life.
You have no life?
I have no life. I'm free all the time.
Not really.
Yeah, I got it.
They're available.
I'm available at any time, day or night.
Okay, I'll talk to Christy. Maybe we can do something mid-afternoon and that way we can have the rest of the day. Okay? That sounds like a wonderful idea, Dana. Do you have any other concerns?
That is it for me.
Sharon?
I have two, I don't know if they're concerns or questions, so, a citizen pointed out to me that under our old business, we should have things listed that we haven't resolved or vowed to discuss and didn't discuss or blah, blah, blah. So what I'm getting at, and my question to all of you, is should we have a category of things that haven't been taken care of yet or haven't been adequately discussed, so things don't fall through the cracks? It's just, I'm just putting out as a question. I don't know.
Sure, we can work on that during a work session and see what we want to do. If we want to have someone recording secretary make a star by everything that we didn't do and said we were going to do, and it could be a special heading. Remember this. Or
Not done,
not done, yes.
still in the inbox.
But that's a great idea. What's your other one?
Okay, the second one is, I would at some point in time like to have a discussion. And maybe some education, which would probably involve Peter. About the difference between making a decision for the city, for a city action that does have consequences as far as setting city precedent versus having that decision that potentially could set city precedent be made by the city council as opposed to just by an individual. So it's a big question in my mind, and I'd like to set up some discussion around that.
Sure, we could put that on the next agenda.
Okay. That's it? Rita?
I have no concerns.
Preston?
No concerns.
Okay. I'll take a motion.
I move we adjourn the meeting.
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
I
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming out.
Wednesday, sir. I really